I just got an email from Dennis asking where the meeting was.
So Randy, the camera's kind of cutting you off at the nose. Is that intentional?
No,
Yeah.
I'm
No, we
just
got
at my office.
Got the full face there. Okay, good. How's it going?
Good. How are y'all?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to forward to Dennis the link from Jody because he's just sent me an email, says, where is the meeting?
Dennis, not Franson.
No, Lisenby.
I need to talk with Jody tomorrow and make sure I didn't receive the link either. I got it from Sherry. And so I need to talk with Jody and get on the mailing.
It's actually,
Bottom of the agenda
it's on the
that we
agenda.
had on. Yeah.
Yeah, but
You have
Yeah.
to copy and paste it.
they didn't get that from
I
Jody.
didn't get the agenda.
Oh, you didn't get the agenda?
No,
Oh.
I got it from Sherry just in the last couple hours.
Yeah, Jody sent it, and then on the bottom of the page, it's got all that information, but you had to open it. It had the agenda, and then it had an attachment. It was on the bottom of the attachment.
Kathy,
Kathy's on. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, guys.
hello.
How are you?
Joining us?
I'm good.
Good, good, good. Well, I would think Dennis would hop on here any minute.
And I spoke with Brett, and he's not able to join us tonight. He has I think a soccer coaching assignment that was unexpectedly changed. And Jesse
Jesse?
Lee will not be here tonight.
Okay.
Well, Sherry, you're
Should we get going?
driving the train?
Okay, I'm ready to drive the train a little bit tonight and go
Yeah.
through this agenda. Do we have any public comment that anyone would like to make? I guess I should ask Wayne that.
Jody.
Or Jody.
Wayne, are you around tomorrow if I call you?
Should be, yes.
All right. Well, we'll see what weather's like, but I may try and hunt you down tomorrow for a short conversation. So,
Okay.
Okay, should we move to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the 3rd of January, 2021? I sent those minutes out to everyone. Do you have any questions or corrections or additions or deletions that you'd like to make?
I only have one, Sherry.
Okay.
I was surprised to see that I'd been put in that position. Is this what happens when you don't attend the meeting?
yeah.
You only got
I'm
one?
very flattered, but I don't know that I feel like I want to take on quite that responsibility of being the committee head. I would certainly volunteer whatever services I could, but I don't know that I want to head all of the activities. So,
Okay. I can note that in the minutes and amend them and send them to Jody. Are there
all
any
right, I
other,
appreciate that.
are there any other concerns?
And Kathy, as we talk about subcommittees and the organization, maybe we can kind of clarify and also look for additional support.
Absolutely. Okay.
Well, at the rate that we're going, we'll probably all share in everything that is on our plates. And I guess if that's the way it is, that's the way it's going to be, I guess.
Does anybody have anything else or want to make a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment of Kathy not being the chair for the subcommittee for recreation?
I move to approve the minutes with that amendment.
Do I have a
I
second?
second
Comment?
that.
Yeah,
I'm not
sure.
sure I've seen the minutes. I'm not officially a committee member, so
Right,
I'm fine with that, but maybe you all saw the minutes. and Maybe I didn't get them because I'm not a committee member, but I just thought I'd interject that.
So
okay, maybe
Wayne,
maybe
is
I don't
there-
know how that works. Jody,
I've
do I
got a-
need to put those out publicly before we, as a committee, approve them?
So Wayne, are you at Wayne at Woodland Hills, Utah or -utah.gov?
No, that I should be, but that email is not working.
So what about Bishop Lawman?
That's the one.
I like it.
All right, I just sent it to that if you want to look at it.
Okay.
So is that something that I need to do as secretary? Do I need to send those minutes to Jody to go out to the public before we approve them as a committee?
I don't know.
I don't. Wayne, do you know, what do you do with the planning commission?
Yeah, what I
Minutes.
do is I draft them up and then I send them to the planning commission and I
Yeah,
send them to Jody at the same time, but I ask the planning commission, do you have any changes or additions that you want to make? And so they'll feedback to me any changes that they feel ought to be made, and then I'll make those changes. And then I'll send them to them again as well as Jody. And that's when I think she puts them in the public domain.
okay, okay.
So, and with regards to you, Wayne, Sherry wouldn't have to send them to you since you're not,
How would you get them? From Jody?
Well-
You have to ask for Jody?
Yeah, but that's right. I mean, I'll try to attend as many meetings as I can, but since I'm not a committee member, then the minutes really should just go to those committee members, and those are the ones that are going to vote on the minutes, on approving the minutes, not the public at large.
Okay, okay. I mean, I'm happy to send them to you.
I don't mind receiving them, and that would be fine. Just maybe add me on the
Okay.
list, and so
I'll
when I
be
miss a
happy to
meeting,
do
I'll know
that.
what you're talking about.
Okay,
Thank you.
We're a new committee, so this is an education process for all of us.
I understand.
so I have a motion by Greg to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Is that the way I do this, or do we have to go by person and vote?
No, you can do it all together.
Okay, all in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
And then ask for a negative vote, and that way you know if there's somebody who objects to it.
Okay, are there any negative votes to not approve the minutes?
just like in church.
Yeah, just like in church. We don't have to raise our hand, though. It's easy to remember. Okay, thank you. So the minutes are approved, and I will send
With the
them,
exception of Kathy's.
yes, and I will amend them, that Kathy doesn't want to be the chair of the subcommittee for recreation events, and I will send them to Jody tomorrow. Greg, do you want to go through the open meeting training for us, please?
Yes, and I sent out a document from the state about just a two-page summary on the Open and Public Meetings Act. But the Open and Public Meetings Act requires that any members of a public body hold their meetings in open, they take minutes, that the meetings are noticed, variety of provisions. But the basic principle is this, that we are engaged in the public's work, and that therefore all of our work and proceedings and votes and actions should take place in public and open meetings that have been properly noticed and minutes taken, and other procedures followed. In actuality, you think that the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee probably has limited exposure here. We're not spending the public's money. We're not hiring or firing people. We're not making decisions as to where they can live or crucial life decisions. I think we're talking about some very popular public events like an Easter egg hunt or a Christmas tree decoration, but still, we need to follow these rules, these guidelines, to make sure that we are operating properly. And one first question is what is a meeting? And a meeting is any convening of a public body where a quorum is present. Now, for the purposes of our committee, we have an executive committee, and then we have a variety of committee members. And so a quorum constitutes a simple majority of the executive committee. And actually, Sherry and myself and John are on that executive committee. And so we have
50%.
What?
We have 50%. Is
Yes,
that a quorum?
just barely a quorum, yeah.
Okay.
So we're good
Woo-hoo.
there. What is not a meeting? A social gathering, a chance meeting, and then there are work meetings which are considered meetings, but there are also there's just legwork that goes on in the community. For example, last week I met with Councilor Carrie Malkovich and Ted Mickelson and John was there. We had a couple other residents, and we were looking over the park and deciding, where to do landscaping in relation to the channel. That doesn't constitute a meeting. There's no decisions being made there. It was just for our information to help us then carry the information to a meeting where it's acted upon. Let's see. Minutes must be taken, and the meeting is noticed prior to the meeting through email. Meetings can occur either electronically, as we're doing here, or in open meeting. One question I have for clarification, maybe Jody knows here, is the question, are Zoom calls recorded? And do we have an obligation to record meetings, to make a voice recording? Jody there?
You look on the top left of your screen, it's got a red thing that says recording. She does record these.
What was that, John?
On my screen, I can look in the top left, there's a little red thing that blinks and it says recording. That means she does record this.
Oh, I don't see that on mine.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I've got it on mine.
Kind of the top left.
Yes, they're recorded automatically. So
Yeah, I think Jody, just by setting it up, it records.
Okay, good. Oh, I see that, yeah, okay. So that
Oh,
is,
right there.
that is a quick overview and constitutes our required training. There are closed meetings if we are talking about a person's character or imminent litigation, matters regarding property sale. I can't imagine that we would have any of those. So again, our liability under the law is our exposure is fairly limited, but I think it's important that we understand what's required of the law.
Well, thanks, Greg.
Any questions? Okay.
I think in line with what Greg said about, you know, there's work that goes on behind the scenes. And there is, and there has been, and that's kind of the direction we're going now in the subcommittee reports. I'd like to get the committee's feelings on, rather than reports being given in this meeting, that we report to each other via email so that we already have all the information in front of us when we come together as a committee to discuss that information. As opposed to being a fact-finding meeting, that this meeting be a meeting used to make decisions and plans to go to the city council with proposals, rather than John's now going to tell us about the meeting that he had about the shrubbery that Greg just mentioned, you know, down there by the mitigation sites. Do you all feel good about being emailed about those things beforehand, rather than spending time in this meeting going over information that we could share via email?
I
Okay.
think that's good. I think that's quite a time saver, Sherry.
Okay, good. Well, John, do you want to just give us a quick update and then followed up by Greg with his update on the BYU students? So John, can you give us a quick update? And
Yeah, I'll
next
keep
time
it
we'll
real
do
quick.
all this via email.
Greg, you haven't heard from Meg yet, have you?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not sent her a follow-up email, and I'll do that this week. I'll
I'll go ahead and start putting something together based on what we just talked about in the Senate. What we basically did, Greg, I, Ted, Carrie, and Nanette Baker, and we've kind of designated the upper mitigation, which is the pond across from Baker, Otley's and myself. So that's the upper mitigation. The stuff next to Baker's is the middle mitigation, and then the lower mitigation is the stuff in the park. So just to differentiate those three, that's how we'll refer to them moving forward, if you guys are okay with that.
Okay,
So Greg he's gonna pursue grants based on that favor the lower and middle mitigation with an understanding that the upper mitigation, not much we can do that would be of public benefit. So basically, and this is why I want to call you on tomorrow, Wayne, your proposal there, especially of public facilities, no trespassing for that, especially that upper. And then I think the two things we'd like to somehow work in is the no trespassing exemptions would be for revegetation, allowing that to take place, and then maintenance is needed basically for that. The middle mitigation is going to have a little more flexibility. Greg's looking at trying to get some grant money to help vegetate, put a little bit of a trail type thing up against Grizzly, kind of in that little corridor there adjacent to the street. And then lower mitigation, which is the park, full steam ahead on whatever he can get any money for. So that's the basis of what we looked at. And then I want to talk to you, Wayne, on how the lower mitigation, Wayne, doesn't have anything to do with your planning commission, because that's just the park and that. It's just that middle and upper. So I'll call you tomorrow and have you help me maybe verbalize that in a way that will, I want to keep it really simple. I really do. So anyway, that's what I want to call you on tomorrow. So,
Okay.
all right. That's the basis of it.
well, the grants are through Woodland Hills Outdoors. We have to be careful to distinguish between Woodland Hills Outdoors and PTR. Okay,
I'll be talking about the grant later, right?
Before we move on,
Yeah.
just something that's popped into my mind here. And Wayne, I'm sure you can clear this up. As I have, this winter, as I have gone around and visited my kids in other communities, specifically Timberlake up above Heber City, and then down in Draper and Sandy, what I have noticed is that a lot of these areas, like our mitigation, our upper mitigation, where a basin has been created, those communities allow kids in there to sled, to ride snowmobiles. It becomes part of a recreational kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, why does Sandy and Draper and Timberlake allow it? And why are we trying to create a private or whatever to keep those kinds of activities at bay? Is there something different about our situation than Timberlake and Sandy and Draper?
There's two variables there.
They're mitigated.
First one is FEMA limits what can be done up there. Ted talked a little about that. And the other one is John will sue the pants off the city if they try and do anything other than what would be the impact of 2 lots up there. I'm just cutting to the chase.
I mean, it's not just you, John, but
I know.
that upper mitigation lot
Yes.
basically overlooks Isaac's bedroom and bathroom. I mean,
Yeah, their privacy is at stake if
huge
anything's allowed to
privacy.
take place up there because of the way it's been built.
I mean, that upper mitigation lot, yes, it would be the ideal tubing hill,
Yeah.
but
So here's an example. Last,
up there, when Isaac's property has been just exposed
a
to,
week ago Saturday, we had snow. Monday morning, so a week ago Monday morning, I went out and I had 2 sets of sled tracks that come down the mitigation spillway, which is across from Motley's. Then those kids took those sleds, come through my front yard, went through Baker's front yard, and then went down through the mitigation stuff next to Baker's. And that's exactly what we don't want having up here is people doing that stuff. And then they're coming through our yards. Therese had people up there. They're coming into her yard that were up there sledding a couple weeks ago. And they were coming up adjacent to her property. And it was just creating a nightmare for them in that situation there. So that's the personal issue. But then Ted's also got the issue there of FEMA only allows so much. And then the big concern I know the city has, Jeff, and have you guys have gone over and looked at that bowl, right? The basin?
I haven't, not since it's been completed.
I know it says no trespassing, but I really feel like those of us on the committee need to at least go over and see it.
Yeah,
Like,
I need to go up there and take a look at it, but I haven't.
if you go look at the section there that's behind Richards, where it comes out of the mouth of the canyon, they've put the drainage in with the concrete barriers, and then next to that, they've got kind of an access where the dirt just kind of runs parallel to it.
Uh-huh.
Awesome tubing hill. I'm going to be honest with you, but all it's going to take is for a kid on that to go slightly left, and then he hits those concrete barricades, and he's going to be in pieces by the time he hits the bottom. And
Yeah,
that-
we've got the same thing when they come down the easement road
yeah,
that the city uses to get to the water tanks.
yeah.
The kids come flying down that hill and then they hit the tarmac that has no snow and they go flying off their
yeah.
sleds.
So the city, I mean, I know, and again, I don't know what their insurance policy would cover, but I'm sure they prefer not to find out.
So basically, it's
the
a
mitigation.
city decision. These other areas that I'm talking about, those basins were created for overflow. I mean,
Yeah.
they were dug out and they were created for overflow. So, you know, there was a purpose in mind when they created these spaces in Sandy and Draper and Timberlake. And there are houses around all these basins.
Odds
So
are that
basically
the
what we're saying
basins
is
and the
that-
houses were built and they knew about it at the same time. That was never the intent.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big difference.
Or the city's funded those. So then there's no restriction. It can be whatever the city wants to do,
Versus
which is different
NCRS.
from our
and FEMA.
situation where we had outside funding that is
Yeah.
kind of is controlling of
Okay,
kind of activities that can be done on that.
okay.
Anyway, sorry, we detoured.
No digression. Greg, how about I know you sent me an email having to do
Yes,
with,
I sent this to to the entire committee. But the city council has asked us to review the pavilion registration process and the form. And I've done that and made some changes to the form and to the reservation process, basically specifying that the payment and completing the form and reserving the pavilion is required by private groups of 50 or more, and which is consistent with the county's requirement for events. And then on the form, we've taken the existing form and added that the applicant must be at least 18 years of age and have the applicant indicate the number of participants attending and the start time and end time. So all of those little additions to the form are consistent with the county's form. So we're kind of in line with what they're doing. And then we put the rules, the conditions of use on the form, which includes things like no smoking, dogs on leash, clean up your trash, and the park is, no fires in the park. And then at the bottom of the form, we have the applicant sign and certify that they've read the form, they understand that they agree to the terms and conditions, and acknowledge responsibility. So that's and in fact that verbiage and terminology just came off the county's form. So I think we're good to send this on to the council and mayor for approval. The only comments I had back, I had one from Jody, and she suggested that we change the fees, the resident fees for pavilion rental be increased from $25 per half day to $50 per half day. And the non-resident fees be set at $60 per half day. And she said that was more in line, more consistent with what other municipalities in the area are doing.
So Greg, is Jody okay with these dollar amounts then?
Oh yes, yeah, she proposed them. So I just said, Jody's the one taking the money and talking with people.
She's the one that's gonna have to deal with this, so.
Yeah. So these were her recommendations. And then finally, Jesse Lee suggested that this be a PDF and that we be able to complete and submit this form online. And as far as I know, the city does not have online credit card payment or form submission on their website. It's a fairly easy, fairly simple plugin. And so I would suggest, so as we send the new process and form on to the city, to the city council and mayor, I would suggest that they also make that online payment.
Do you have to have a bill from the city to pay via Express Pay? I mean, that's how I pay my bill every month to the city.
That's how I pay my utility bill, my city.
Right.
bill.
Do you have to have a bill to
But
make
there
a
are
payment?
other fees, and for example, the fees for pavilion rental.
Right.
I don't know, can you pay those by Express Pay?
I don't know.
Or Venmo?
We can ask Jody.
I don't think the city's set up to take those kinds of payments at this time. It's check or cash.
Right.
Okay.
And with COVID and with the city offices being closed much of the time, I think we have to have a convenient way for residents to pay. I don't write checks anymore. I pay everything online. I think that's kind of the way things are going. So I think the city, again, should install that plugin on the website and have basically a shopping cart or a way to pay. There's a whole schedule of fees that can and should be paid online. I think it will increase compliance, payment of fees, and increase revenues for the city.
Yeah, that'd be something good for the finance committee to look into, and Chris Helvey and his group, Mike Taylor. One thing before you move off that, Greg, the 50 person, that doesn't say anything about a 15 person gathering that wants to reserve the pavilion. They can still reserve it, can't they? Even though their numbers are under 50.
Yes, yes, if they want private and exclusive use of the pavilion,
Yeah,
maybe a family event where you have
yeah.
a family of 20 or 30 people, they can certainly do that.
Well, I just had a comment that came into my mind. I think, and Wayne, you can help me out with this. Under park usage in the ordinances, the park is open till 11. Yet the disturbing the peace ordinance is at 10:30. Do they conflict? It sounds to me like they might.
Well, I guess they could, but you can have a quiet gathering too from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. So,
Right.
but it's something to be, it's there, and maybe there needs to be some adjustment to it. I don't know.
Sherry, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Could I add something to that too? Having rented quite a few from Orem for our family gatherings and also Woodland Hill City, you may want to look at what Orem does and what some adjoining cities do. For example, they have very strict clauses on their water use. We're getting into a season where water might be an issue. And water for, like we had a giant slide and it runs the water continually. And people need to be charged for that. When we rented the city last July, we paid them $150 to include the water fee for that because we use considerable water. If you bring inflatables in like bounce houses, you probably need to consider, do you want that on the city grasses? I know Orem restricts that. You might want to look at pools or slip and slides. They also have a clause in Orem against bands and concerts. So for the citizens that live nearby, some concerts can be pretty loud and disturbing. So it might be worth just looking at what some of our neighboring cities do with their parks so that we cover everything rather than waiting till an incident comes up where citizens complain and say, and then we have to go back and rewrite it.
Good point, Catherine. I'll check into that because the city, when Jody issues receives these forms, she could also put additional stipulations on the form. For example, if there are either COVID guidelines or some other, or water use or
your bounce houses for your big slides. We have also used the park before for ward gatherings, which is, 300 people. So, we might also consider restrictions for that or how we're going to handle that kind of use.
Mhm.
Well, so on the form, it says we're going to adhere to, the city's rules and regulations. Should we as a committee, like Kathy is suggesting, come up with uses, recommendations prohibiting certain uses and present those to the city council where those could be included in whatever paperwork Jody is handing out along with the application?
They do that in Orem. They give you these forms to read and sign first and agree to, and they're enforceable with penalties. And they're very strict with their public parks use. And, we're a small town now, but we won't always be. And so it's probably good to look at what other cities are doing and stay pretty consistent with what they are, or we're going to run into problems later.
Well, let's
Good
keep
idea.
that. And I think the intent of this form, which goes on the website, the intent is to make it evergreen. And there will certainly be other things that come down the pike, whether it's COVID restrictions or other kinds of issues for each for various gatherings. And I don't think this form, this one form can encompass all of those eventualities.
Right.
I agree. I don't think it can either, Greg, but I think Kathy's point is
Oh,
well
I-
taken. As a committee, we ought to be proactive and just, sharing our thoughts about, well, city, maybe you want to charge a water use, or city, maybe you want to make sure that whether or not you want to ban. We're not making policy, but what we're doing is we're bringing these things to light so that the city can act upon. I mean, that's part of our job, is to be proactive and highlight some of these things, as Kathy has done in this meeting. We should pass those things on to the city and let them be aware. How do you want to deal with this, city? And maybe make a suggestion. We can come up with a suggestion and let the city decide. But we should be proactive in that regard.
No, and maybe have a line on the form that says additional city considerations okay. I
Greg,
will
I had a
check into
question
the-
too. Is there any arrangements for a cleaning deposit? If somebody goes up there and just leaves it trashed, is that part of the $50 or $60?
Yes.
Go up and clean it up. Should there be an extra refundable deposit, if it's left in good condition? That might be another thing you want to consider in that form.
Yes, there is a deposit required, a $50 deposit for city residents and $100 for non-residents. And then under the terms and conditions, it says the applicants are responsible for all cleanup and packing out of their own trash. Failure to do so will result in forfeiture of deposit.
That's
So
good.
So is that deposit in addition to the rental deposit then?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Okay.
So who is it in the city that checks up to make sure that they cleaned up after themselves? Whose job is that?
It's likely Jody or possibly Craig or Corbett.
yeah.
Craig's as the compliance officer.
Well, no,
Yes.
well, yeah. Okay, Greg, so what do we want to do with the form in terms of, do we want to,
So I
Make
go back
recommend-
and check some other cities and create a line about
use?
other conditions of use and what would you suggest? I
I
think-
think that other cities' forms are online, Greg.
They are.
And so you could easily check and see if there's something maybe that we want to add to protect ourselves and to cover, gallons and gallons of water use. Make sure that's paid for.
Okay, yeah.
So we'll table any presentation to the city council until our next meeting in March? Is
Yes.
that what we're saying?
I think
Unless
that'll
there's
work
a way
because
to-
no one's going to be renting the park until it warms up, I think. So we probably got time to table that and deal with that
Yeah.
in March's meeting.
Okay,
Greg, you'd sent me an email. I'm under subcommittee reports now, under parks, working with BYU students and landscape management and civil engineering. Can I just copy that email in the notes that BYU is capped out for 2021, but they will be taking
Yes.
on new projects in 22?
yes, and I've kind of, I've reached out to several BYU professors that manage the capstone projects and internships in civil engineering, environmental engineering, and in landscape design or landscape management. And they have capstone projects that take place normally in the fall semester. And so we'll going to get on their list as opportunities.
Is there any point in maybe reaching out to UVU?
Yeah, I have not worked with UVU on those, so, but yeah, I'd be certainly willing to do that too.
Any follow-up on the USA designation for National Arbor Day?
let's pass on that until we,
Okay,
no follow-up there.
So everybody, Greg, the landscape management program is in my department, the department I'm in at BYU. So I'll kind of keep talking with those folks. I've got good friends that are there. So they're saying they have plenty of projects for next year. Is that what they told you, Greg, or for this
No,
current year?
I talked with Greg Jolly, who's in charge of the capstone projects, and he says that that those capstone projects take place in fall semester, and so they would love to work with us in the fall.
So we had
It would be
it was
feasible, doesn't work into their course or their academic schedule to do capstone projects
Bugs.
right now.
mhm.
Plus,
Yeah, they'll do a good job. We had them, Kelsey and I had them come up and look at our lot. This is like 3 or 4 years ago, and there were like 10 kids in the class, and each student put together a master landscaping plan for our lot, and then they submitted that for the course for the grade. We got to see all 10 of them, and we kind of picked the ones we liked the most and picked the elements and the pieces from the ones they liked the most. So I think that's a good idea to get some some diversity there, and then the city can kind of pick and choose what they want it to look like.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to trails. Eli isn't on tonight and neither is Doral. So I'll have to follow up on what happened about the ordinance that Eli was going to send to Doral and the question that he posed at the last meeting about ATVs and trail usage. While we're talking about trails, I think we need to think as a committee about access to the trail. There is a lot going on, and I'm going to give you some feedback that I got from Doral and Corbett when Jeff and I had a meeting with them probably 2 weeks ago about the avalanche mitigation and what the engineering that's going forward as a proposal for that, and the dirt that's being hauled up the easement road to the water tank for all these lots that are being built upon. And there's going to be 25 of them, I think, in the course of the next year. So there's going to be dirt being hauled up the easement road to the water tanks for the next 4 years, according to Corbett. And when the city did their mitigation and hauled all the dirt up to the water tank, that easement road was closed to the public. So how are we going to access the trail for the next 4 years if these projects are going to be ongoing? There is an access from Sky Lake. Jeff is going to the County of Utah tomorrow to look at, there's 2 parcels of land on the Platte down there by Sky Lake that the public has to cross in order to access what's the best word for that, Wayne? A utility road that's cut up by the fence that says avalanche danger. The city uses that. They cross, what's the guy's name?
Well,
Machado.
Yeah,
It-
Machado's
it's-
property,
It's city's property that the road is on, but they have to cross
Machado's.
to get to their property. Is
And
that
there's
right,
no
Wayne?
there's no easement.
No, but they need to work on that. So that's something the city is on a to-do list, but I don't know how quick it'll get done.
Well, and the public, meaning not city people, but ATVs and hikers access the trail using that route. I know I've seen them and I've seen tracks and they're using it as well. So if the water tank easement road that Taylors have granted is going to be cut off for the next 4 years, possibly, that is a way to access the trail. providing the avalanche mitigation doesn't cut that road off too, which it very could well be. But this is something that we need to talk about as a committee and make proposals to the city, because nobody may be able to get up there. And how are we going to get up there? And does the city even want to have a trail if nobody can get to it?
Where's
We
that
need to-
dirt coming from again, Sherry?
What's that, John?
Where's that dirt coming from?
It's coming from people that are building houses. Corbett is using that dirt. In other words, if I was building my house, the dirt that I used that comes from excavation, rather than my subcontractor hauling it off down the city and paying $250 a truckload, and I'm using rough figures, I'm not sure if these are them, the subcontractor, the general contractor would pay the city $150 to dump it up there by the water tank. And they're already doing it. They've been doing it from Oak when they did the water lines.
Yeah, and they've been dumping it down by the salt shed too, and kind of, I think they ticked off an adjacent property over there too, from what I
Well,
heard.
I think it's the kind of dirt, because Corbett also mentioned that some dirt, depending upon the hole that's dug, can be used over there by Kathy, by your place, to fill in and make it more level and do
He
whatever. they're
did.
gonna-
We talked to him about that, but there were a lot of problems involved with that.
Okay.
So we sent a written proposal to the city, and that was kind of the end of that. So I don't think that's going to happen. you know,
Okay.
to dump the dirt, because it kills many of the trees on our property. And we don't want to have that done. We've got a lot of issues involving the road in front of our house, and this just complicates it further.
Okay.
So I think we left that off the table. It's not an option to be dumping dirt down by our property. So I think they then went to dumping it by the water tanks, as you suggested is happening.
Yeah, the
But it
city
is a
approved that.
concern with 15 homes or more being built, just where all this dirt is going to go, and how will these big trucks be accessing those roads? That is a concern.
Well, and it's a danger to the public
Absolutely.
when they're walking up that water tank road, or, to be honest, cutting across Tueler's property. Yeah. These trucks come flying up and down, and it's either going to be a liability to the city, as Corbett says, or a liability to the person who's hauling the dirt if they hit somebody. So I don't know, other than Sky Lake, how we would access the trail. I know the idea has been kicked around, and I know the strong sentiment about using that upper mitigation lot. Perhaps by Richards, I guess, is the idea that was being kicked around. People would have to park at the park in order to access the trail. We also have an issue with parking on Deep Forest.
Yeah, I've been plowing and it's a nightmare this winter.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
and when Taylors really start to build and not just put in their fire hydrant, there's no way a fire truck can turn around. And Craig has already posed to me, there's something has to be done about the parking. So how are we going to access the trail? I don't know. We need ideas to pose to the city, because we're kind of being blocked off. So
And
what does everybody
Sky Lake
think?
Seems like the logical solution, and having parking places. You could easily put 20 or 30 parking places up there below the tanks. But that's all dovetailed with the avalanche mitigation that's being discussed, and it's a problem that's coming to a head very quickly.
Yeah.
We need to kind of address look at
Yeah.
possible
And I
solutions.
know, I know Dave Taylor has some very strong feelings regarding once he starts building and once he gets his house up, he's got some very strong feelings about the use of that easement that that was granted to the city before his time. And so, you know, it's all going to come to a head here, not tomorrow, but it's down there, it's down the road. There's no denying it. And so we need to start talking about, you know, possible solutions and get ahead of the problem and offer some solutions to the city. Because if we wait, if we don't do anything about it, and then it comes to a head, it could be an absolute nightmare
Well, and
for the
with
community.
the water bars up there now and the restricted use on the trail, Wayne, do we have to go through land use change on section 11 for public hearing having to do with motorized vehicles on trails in the city? I know it's in that subdivision part, but does that also apply to city property? Would we have to go through 2 public hearings with the planning commission and then 2 public hearings with the city council in terms of use on the trail?
One public hearing would I think all that would be needed. It's an oddball thing up there because you may go back and find that the trail has never been restricted to non-motorized. So if the city wants to restrict it to just non-motorized, then they would have to have a public hearing on it. But if there's never been restriction, then there wouldn't need to be a public hearing on continuing to use it the way it presently is being used. So the chapter that is, or the draft, I guess, should say that would be part of the trails, add to our current trails couple of paragraphs, has to do with non-motorized trails in the city. It doesn't take into consideration that single trail, which is, for all intents and purposes, considered a motorized trail. So again, a nuance there, but that needs to maybe have further discussion with the city and for the city to decide whether they want to make it a non-motorized trail or leave it as it is, a multi-purpose type trail. But the issues that you're bringing up, I agree, they need to come to the forefront, and at least people start thinking about that and how they want to handle that with those things that are potentially planned up there for the additional mitigation efforts.
That's right, Wayne. And, you know, the question really isn't, is it motorized or not? I mean, if the city says it's motorized, I think the larger question is, okay, how are they going to access the trail? How are those motorized vehicles going to access the trail? Given the discussion about the mitigation, Taylor building their home there, that may be blocked off, that access to the trail.
And
I mean,
Skylake may be blocked off.
and
too, we
Skylake
don't
may be
know.
blocked off because of the private property. So the bigger question is not whether it's motorized, but how are they going to get up
to it?
there?
Yeah, I agree. Those things need to be discussed, and sooner
And
rather than later.
While we talk about use as a committee to propose to the city, we also need to talk about maintenance, enforcement of that use. I had a long talk with the sheriff, Sean Peterson, yesterday, and I was kind of aware of this, but I forgot about it. The sheriff cannot enforce any ordinances in Woodland Hills. He can only enforce criminal, i.e. no trespassing. He cannot enforce any ordinances. So when the city passes their ordinance, how do they plan to enforce them?
That's a code enforcement thing, but that's a whole other issue.
I know. It's all part of the pie. So please think about it. Jeff will report on what we find from the county tomorrow on these two little rectangular pieces of property that people are already going across and have been for years. And then try to find out, I guess, what the city's going to do as far as an easement. If they're asking for an easement that allows pedestrian, equestrian, motorized, city utility, you know, whatever they're asking for in an easement, they could easily put in how they want to use the trail, how they want to define the use of the trail and get to it. So we'll let you know about that, but please be thinking about it and let's email each other and call each other and talk about it. Any other comments on that before we move on?
So setting Taylor's aside, the dirt going up there, it's not a daily thing. It's gonna kind of ebb and flow depending on construction. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay, I mean, it might be busy 1 week or 2 weeks and then might not be nothing for a couple weeks. Just gonna be on and off for the next several years, right?
well, in the winter, we haven't, well, the city's been plowing that road. They go up there with their, whatever that piece of equipment is, and they've been clearing that off so that the big dump trucks can get up there.
Yeah, and cause I plow regularly, but us regular plow drivers do not plow that past the asphalt. So I'm not sure who Corbett has plowing that up there. I don't know if he's doing it or if he's having Mike Prey do it. You know, Mike works with, but those of us that are the regular plow drivers, we do not do it at all. In fact,
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think you're supposed to because you're coming across our private driveway before you get to the easement road.
we just do the road. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so whoever's doing that, I'm unaware of who it is. I'd just be curious to know who's doing it. So.
Okay, I can ask Corbett because they do in order for the trucks to come up. We haven't seen one in about a week.
So,
But-
so there's that asphalt that comes off the street and then you kind of go off right and then that goes up and loops left, right? Is that what you're talking about? Is that what they're
Yeah,
accessing?
yeah, it's like a backwards C off
Yes.
of deep. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the private driveway for Taylor's, Toolers, and us.
So that's what they're accessing to take the dirt up?
They go across that
Oh.
to
and
get to
then-
the dirt road
Okay, all right.
that goes
gotcha.
up.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who's plowing that.
As far as recreation and events goes, Greg has emailed everybody regarding all these events and when they're going to take place and what's been canceled. I'll just include that in the minutes so we don't have to talk about any of that.
There's really just 4 events that we have responsibility for. And all of those are really due in working with Bob Otley, who has the city council member responsibility for events. And so we'd like to find someone for each of those events or all of the events. Woodland Hills Days, Trunk or Treat, tree lighting in the park, and some kind of Easter egg hunt. And so maybe a meeting in the next few weeks with Bob and someone from the committee would be helpful. And Kathy, that's where I was hoping you might be able to join us in meeting with Bob and having.
I'd be happy to. I'd be
and-
happy to see if we come up with some names.
And finding other people in the community that might be a team to host and develop those events.
Sure, just give me a call and let me know when you're meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you,
All
Kathy.
right, thank you.
It's 8:00. As far as natural resources go, all the people that volunteered for the Dark Sky Committee have received emails with some information. We should get together and talk about this. Will you please be thinking about money that we need to present to, I guess, the Finance Committee? They're going to start to put together their budget in March to present to the city. I mean, do we need a big dumpster for Woodland Hills cleanup day so we can clean up the oil barrels that are on the side of Eagle's Nest and the for sale signs that are rotting on the ground, and that could be included as well. But be thinking about money that we're going to need, and let's email each other about it. Greg, can you real quickly talk about your grants?
Yes, in 30 seconds. There's a Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant. And this year, for the first time, they have a mini grant, which is, it's a matching grant up to $10,000. And so they, the city or whoever the applicant for the grant comes up with $10,000, half of which can be in kind. And then the city will, or then the state will match that. So we could get a $20,000 project with basically $5,000 of donated funds. I think we can achieve that. And the grant application deadline is March 15th, I think, 15th or 19th. So that's in the works. I'm meeting with people to develop that grant application.
And that's being done through Woodland Hills Outdoors, not
Yes,
City of Woodland Hills.
because we have the ability to receive donations by credit card on our website, which should be up in the next few days.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Does anybody have, the only other item that I can see we haven't talked about is the general plan map that has to do with trails. When the snow melts, I'd love to go walking through the city of Woodland Hills with anybody who wants to go on these proposed trails and just see where they are. So yay, spring. Anybody have any other items they want to bring up?
Just let us know on that dark sky committee net, because I'm definitely interested. I read through that.
I emailed you. Did
Yeah.
you get my email?
I read through that, and based on that, I think we're all in violation.
Well, and if we propose these things, who's going to enforce them? I mean, you've got two big houses, well, three, John, around you that are around the park, and the other one on that dead end.
I've got neighbors
Sorry, I
on
don't know the name of the road.
24/7 outside all the time. One of them is Greg's backdoor neighbor, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, they're supposed to be off at 11 o'clock according to city ordinance.
Yeah, no, I think on this, let's educate ourselves so we understand what the city's percent. And then I think rather than going and fining and slapping, I think we educate.
No. Yeah,
I think if we can take and educate this through some public something or other, then I think maybe with some education, we can move this forward.
well, and the lighting ordinance that we've emailed each other
Yeah.
goes back to 1993.
I saw
People don't
that.
talk in terms of watts anymore.
It's
Anyway.
lumens and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, LEDs. So let's keep talking about it because I'm interested in it. You know, we want to do like an event for the Persetas meteor shower down in the park. If everybody has their outside lights on and they're real bright and they're shining in our eyes, we're not going to see anything.
I don't, I'm gonna get on a tiny soapbox here for just 1 second. Why do you move here and then turn on your lights, leave them on 24/7? I understand if you've moved from an area that maybe has a little more crime and such, but we're kind of on the edge of the world here. It's pretty quiet.
Yeah,
I don't
Yep.
understand. Anyway,
I agree. Any other items? Anybody move to adjourn?
Can I say something? This is Janice Otley.
Oh, hi, Janice.
Hi. So, the lights that are on 24/7, like the Thompsons,
yes.
they said that when their guy wired their alarm system, he wired it so the lights would be on all the time at night. And if they turn the lights off, their alarm goes off. I mean, is it possible to approach them to say, can you go back to your guy and say, you got to change this?
I'm sure Mike Reed would be happy to help him.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers the Wallaces, I'm sure, and the Bakers, because
I'm tired of it, but I'm
yeah,
trying-
yeah.
Trying to be nice.
So, well,
Problem.
Yeah. So
Well,
I
and you're
think
about
that-
to get two big homes there and who knows what they're gonna do.
Well,
Well,
it's
and then,
something that, the city should have discussed this with the architects. I mean, that whole thing should have gone through approval. Instead, the cul-de-sac I live on, and my home has it, we've got a lot of wattage. We can light up the sky at night if we wanted to. I leave my lights on, but that's the city, maybe this is something we could discuss with the city about, that when a new home goes in, that the owners and the builder and the architect need to realize that they're building a home for Woodland Hills, not for Salem,
yep.
Mhm. Yep. Good point, Dennis.
Well,
My
the
last
city
one-
the city ordinance does stipulate like you said, the wattage of the lights. So that's what, it doesn't say that you can't turn the lights on all night long. But I think years ago, it was attempted to be regulated by the volume of light that was there. So, and that's in an ordinance. So again, ordinances could be changed if feel that they're contrary to what should be in the city now. So just be aware of that. It's an ordinance.
do you know what ordinance that is? And and is it searchable on the website?
It
Yeah,
should
I've
be
read it.
under lighting.
Lighting. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay.
I can send it to you, Janice, because I sent it out to those on the dark sky community, what the
Yes.
current ordinance is and the proposed ordinance. It's in section 11 that has not been passed yet by the city council.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
But it is in the old ordinance. So, and it's the same thing in the new ordinance. So.
Okay. Yeah,
I-
if you could send that to me, Sherry, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll do it tonight.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything?
We need a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
For
Have
joining
a
us?
great night.
Well, it's a committee, so they're so limited that as a committee, they can offer suggestions. You're talking about things that are ordinances, such as lighting, there's something dark skies, rain, that wasn't there. But there is an ordinance that limits the amount of lighting, but it doesn't limit that you can have lights on all night long. And when that ordinance is put into place, the time